Today, Ajax and Titan Isaiah made a Q&A on Mixer. And this went on for over 2 hours and they gave us a massive amount of new, unreleased information about not only the plans for Season 6, but also upcoming gods, especially Jomungandr, as well as various other things surrounding the game, including things like matchmaking, Loki's current state, which gods are gonna be changed, if there are gonna be more remodels in the future, and all kinds of stuff. The whole thing was 2 hours, but I'm gonna try and break it down as short as possible without leaving out any information. If there is any part here where I misunderstood them or misquoted them, I'm sorry for that. It was just a lot of information in a lot of detail. So this is all not 100% guaranteed, and some of these things are also subject to change, and you can always check back with what they said in the official Q&A as well through the VOD on Mixer. We're gonna jump into the information, try to sort it a little bit, and sum it up as much as possible. So, what do we know? Some information here is a bit repeated, and this is regarding Season 6. The first big thing in Season 6 will definitely be role queuing. This should have a minimal impact on the matchmaking system with how it's currently developed. That's actually kind of interesting because it's not what most people expected. What will happen is 10 people get matchmade the same way they get matchmade at the moment, and after they end up in the match, the considerations for the roll calls are being made. So if you end up in a bracket with, say, 5 other people that all call jungle as well, then everyone will get a different role anyways, instead of the system trying to match someone who's trying to get a jungle role with someone who's, for example, trying to get a support role and ADC role. As such, there won't be any difference in queue time if you're queuing support or any less played role either. The queue time will stay exactly the same, as it is already on a timed queue anyways, and you will simply have a decent chance to get your role, I guess, and depending on how popular your role is, it's going to be harder to get your own role and you won't be getting it every single game. There are things that are being considered at the moment and that might be added in the future as well, not necessarily at the start. For example, there could be an option where higher MMR, the higher matchmaking rating, will give you a higher chance to get your role. So if 2 players want the same role, then the one with the higher MMR will get it. Also, you could get your role if you haven't gotten it in a few matches. Also, you might get extra points or extra TP or something for playing an underplayed role. So there are various things that are in consideration for this at the moment, and we'll see what turns out to be in the game later down the road. With the start of Season 6 with patch 6.1, we'll be seeing a smaller patch than usual for a new season. Normally we would see drastic changes. This time that will not be the case. Ajax considers the game mostly balanced at the moment, and I agree with that, and he thinks that making massive changes would actually be detrimental to the state of the game rather than improving it further. As such, the changes are more targeted to specific areas of the Conquest map here in order to make it a bit more balanced in those regards. One lane that we'll specifically target here is solo lane. We've heard about this before. There are some improvements made here. This not only affects the lane directly, but also certain items. Apparently certain solo items or Guardian items are being brought in line. I'm assuming it's probably going to be Guardian's Blessing specifically in order to change the meta a bit in that regard. Also, the goal of these changes will specifically be to bring warriors back as the primary characters in solo lane. Not to push Guardians or mages out completely, but make it so that warriors have a reason to be picked over them in quite a few situations. As such, there will be a new aggression rewarding objective in some way that is near solo lane, and the solo laners can basically fight over, I suppose. Also, jungle bosses will be changed for the late game stages. On one hand, the plan is to buff the enhanced fire giant buff in a way that may improve sieging. On the other hand, there will be new types of the Gold Furies. You can see one type right here. This is literally a completely new style for the Gold Fury with a Chinese theme, and there will also be a Gold Fury with a Mayan theme. The difference between these Gold Furies is not only visual, but also in the fact that they provide different additional benefits, maybe with a trade-off of less gold. In case of the Chinese Gold Fury, this benefit will be some sort of buff that helps you with sieging. We don't know any details yet, and Ajax and Isaiah did not want to reveal any more than that, but that's already a lot. So we'll have to see what exactly this does. It may not be a directly damage affecting buff or something. Also, with Season 6, lore and story will become a lot more important, and the story will tie in more with the guard releases. And this is mainly due to the fact that HiRez has hired a writer specifically for all these story aspects now, and he's been working a lot to make it a little more interesting and logical, I suppose. Further down the road, we'll see further changes, including the streamer mode, potential ranked changes, and potential matchmaking changes. But now let's talk about Jormungandr. Jomungandr actually has a lot of information from this particular bit already. So he is going to be a giant serpent. And by giant, I mean so giant that if you look at the art right here, this is basically going to be his body in game. It will be cut off underneath and will be in the ground instead. HiRez or Titan wanted Jomungandr to be absolutely gigantic, and in order to do that, they had to make it so that you won't be able to see his entire body and will instead just see his head and his neck. This also has implications for ability interactions. He will, by default, be KNOCKUP and BANISH immune for the entire game, as otherwise it would just look really weird with him being knocked up while he's such a gigantic serpent. That would, on the other hand, mean that certain guards just would be completely useless against him. Think, for example, Naja or maybe Kumbhakana, where you'd have ultimates that simply don't do anything, and therefore there will be a different interaction in its place. So instead of being knocked up, Jomungandr will either receive some other sort of punishment, like for example a percentage damage that he takes instead of the knockup, or a similar mechanic or something that stacks up the more you get hit by knockups or similar. So there will be a downside for him with this, as this is a very strong passive. Visually, we can also see that he has certain aquatic elements, and this is also something that fits in his theme with the fins here. He is going to be very evil. He is basically aiming to destroy the world, so this will be reflecting in his character and maybe his kit as well. You will see certain Nordic elements in his design though, as well as certain runes, and he will most likely be a guardian. That doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to be a full-on tank, but rather he could also very much be a brawler kind of guardian that only has little protective aspects to him. Ajax said specifically, "I feel like he's going to be an aggressive guardian." Core parts of his kit are the size being basically infinite, the fact that he has some interactions with poison and his poisonous bite, so that might be part of his abilities, and the other themes are catastrophe and water. HiRez has actually been testing around with Jomungandr for a very long time. There were Nidhogger files in the game for quite a while, long before Jomungandr was even released, and these were actually files for Jomungandr to test certain things out and to basically throw off the data miners a little bit. Also, Jomungandr being in Smite means that Nidhogger will probably not be in Smite at a later point. Outside of that, another plan for Season 6 is the biggest adventure so far is supposed to be coming. And adventures are generally considered a testing ground for new modes by HiRez, which could eventually mean that one mode might actually end up being permanent. There will also, sadly, be no Smite Car 2. Aside of these questions, there was a bunch of more separate questions that was answered with a lot of further information that I'm going to go through a little bit more quickly because they're just all separate, not tied together in terms of information. A Korean Pantheon has been discussed, but is not in the near future at least. There will be no more god icons as avatars, as they were very unpopular. Remodels are very difficult to do, but is something that HiRez wants to do. They are on the long-term schedule now, and it's kind of, in a way, trying to figure out how they can be possible. Hopefully there will be one in Season 6, and this is a statement by Ajax, not by me. THOTH changes are planned that potentially make him less frustrating to play against, but also make it so that he can get a little bit stronger at the same time. Your points for free skins on the season ticket will be wiped in patch 6.1, so make sure to spend them beforehand. King Arthur will be announced this Friday. It will be in the Arthurian Pantheon, which we already heard about, because Titan doesn't want to be restricted when it comes to the design and the depictions of them, which are rather restricted in the Celtic Pantheon. Arthur will make instant cast necessary because he is kind of more played like an action game character and will be very different. To me, who has been playing a lot of Smash lately, that sounds like he's actually going to play like a Smash character, and that is not too far off. We have another block of info on King Arthur that we'll talk about probably tomorrow, where I will discuss that further. Arthur will have 8 abilities, but the unload order, as Ajax called it, can change in basically any combination. He doesn't have a typical scripted combo. Arthur will not be released in December, but in very early January, due to the fact that HiRez takes a Christmas break. The ranked population has stayed the same after the matchmaking changes to making it a one-player queue, and the matchmaking in higher ranks is definitely better, and HiRez has gotten a lot of positive feedback, but at the same time, duo queue also had its benefits, and the pros have also mentioned that practicing as a duo is a lot more useful for scrims. So Titan or HiRez is open for duo queue in the future again, but with the right constraints that allow it to work better. So we might actually see it again in Season 6 at some point, but it's not sure. Duel will not be focused on, maybe it might get an adjusted map at some point at best, but it will never be a primary mode essentially. Balance changes focus on Conquest first, and also factor in Arena Joust primarily, as those are the most played modes. So when a change gets made, it gets made with Conquest in mind, but it's checked back if it is also okay for Arena and for Joust. Set and Horus are in very early stages still, so basically just the core pillars of their concept exist, similar to Jomungandr, where we know the main theme, but in his case we already know a lot more. The new masks are still considered for balance changes at the moment. They are not intended to be overly popular, so as such, Ajax is quite happy with their current state, and they will likely stay in the game for a long time. There will be no additional blessings for Conquest for now, which I find a little bit unfortunate, but the blessings outside of Conquest will probably be balanced more in the near future. There are plans for Arachne that will most likely include kit changes. Spectator fixes are coming and are being worked on at the moment in the off-season. There will not be any guard removals at all. Draft pick in Casual Conquest is highly unlikely. It was discussed for a while, but the issue is just that it would make the queue too long. Roll queue will most likely come to Casual Conquest though. Current guard changes are more based on the play count and ban rate of a character than on their win rate, which I think is a good decision overall for most guards. Nike is still extremely hard to balance. She technically needs tweaks more than outright buffs because she's still a very strong performing guard, so she would need some buffs and some nerfs at the same time, but at the same time the community may not really like that because they would then wonder why Nike is getting nerfs when she's generally considered a weaker guard. There will be no Summer of Smite anymore, as it's too restrictive in what it allows in terms of skins. The choices from guard 99 to 103 being Arthur, Merlin, Jormungandr, Horus and Set are basically a package deal. They are combined to bring out some new guards, some fresh faces that are different styles, different approach to the game, but also some highly requested, more traditional Pantheon guards, and basically bring it all together as one. So they all 5 are going to come in this order, and this was planned from the start, and there were no excuses or exceptions made here basically. There are 2 more chibi skins coming up, one very soon and one later. Skin concepts from artists are used and are officially licensed through HiRez when they really like a skin and it's really popular. And if you're an artist and you make a skin concept, then you also get paid for it, obviously. So in order to get noticed by HiRez, the skin concept has to get a lot of attention somewhere, for example through Reddit. And what has to also be considered is that they shouldn't look like characters from other games too much, obviously, because that would lead to copyright issues. And also that the design follows the god's general character rig, so that it's not a completely different shape with thousands of ribbons around or something. That would just make the animations completely different and way more complex. Thor will receive a buff in patch 5.24. If Loki ever became broken or OP, he would receive very quick nerfs due to his unique roles, while other gods may have some more leniency with how they can perform. Loki, due to his uniqueness and how he plays against gods, would very quickly be nerfed and may actually get nerfs in the future as well, due to the fact that he's gone unnerfed for quite a while, with certain items being changed in his benefit. There will be changes to 1 or 2 relics next season. Ajax is happy with the state of Aegis and Beats, and they will stay core parts of Smite in the foreseeable future. Genderbent skins are being discussed. Ajax calls the UI changes necessary changes due to the fact that they work for crossplay. He talked a little bit about how everyone dislikes change, but in my opinion kind of missed the point with this one. This is the only point where I really have any complaints about, as for us it's mostly not about the change, but the fact that there was literally functionality taken away. He says that for things to be changed, the complaints need to focus on specific things, not on the UI as a whole, which I guess is understandable, but also that specific feedback has been handed in. But the UI is also not final, and it will still be changed further down the road and fixed eventually. Mastery skins beyond Diamond are currently not planned anymore, even though they were teased as a potential thing at some point in the past. No re-kits for gods are currently planned. A ton of information here from all kinds of different fields that I hopefully brought in a little bit of an order, and I hope you found this interesting and useful. If you're new to the channel, feel free to click the sub button and maybe the bell, it really helps me out. And other than that, see you for the next one tomorrow, where we'll talk a little bit more about information on Arthur specifically. DukeSloth, out.